What word encapsulates what we're all about? If you could choose one word to define American life, what one word would you use? What one word makes our hearts beat, our spirits soar? What one word gets us all jazzed? Oh, well, it's right here on the screens. I'm talking, of course, about a word that only has 2 letters to it. What would that word be? Anybody guess? Up. Up. U-P, up. I'm not talking about the Upper Peninsula in Michigan. I'm just simply talking about the one word that seems to really get us going, and that would be the word up. Up. Upscale, up and coming, upper class, upper crust, upwardly mobile, rise up against the odds, against the enemies. Rise up against anything and everything that stands in your way. Our world has a simple one-word, monosyllabic word with just 2 letters that will be the answer to all your problems. What's that word? Up. Let's get our bearings here. We're in our 7th week as we work our way through the book of Numbers, heading for the Promised Land. And if you have been here for several of these messages, you know that we've met some awfully colorful people, right? Moses, of course, has been front and center in every sermon because, after all, Moses wrote the book of Numbers. And we got to meet members of his family, his brother-in-law named Hobab. And we've met his older brother Aaron and his older sister Miriam. And about a month ago, we met a couple of guys in Numbers 11 called Eldad and Medad. And then, for the last couple of weeks in Numbers chapters 13 and 14, we've been looking primarily at 2 people named Joshua and Caleb. Today, we come across another one of these people in the book of Numbers that perhaps we're not familiar with. And his name would be Korah. Korah. Now, I know some of you have children and grandchildren named Korah, but this Korah I'm talking about is with a K, not a C, so don't worry about it. Because Korah is not just the most virtuous person on planet Earth. You see, from Korah, we learned that up is our greatest enemy. And down is our greatest friend. Put another way, pride, sinful pride, is our greatest enemy. Humility, going down, is our greatest friend. That's where we're at today in Numbers chapter 16 as we keep heading for the Promised Land. And here it is, Korah, remember with a K, Korah, he only has one singular, passionate, all-consuming desire, and that is to go up. First 2 verses in Numbers 16. One day Korah, here he is, son of Izhar, descendant of Kohath, son of Levi, conspired with Dathan and Abiram, sons of Reuben. They incited a rebellion against Moses, along with 250 other leaders of the community, all prominent members of the assembly. Now, I've highlighted 2 words up here for you. You can see them. They would be 2 of the 12 tribes of Israel. 2 of the 12 would be Levi and Reuben. Let's take them in that order. Levi reminds us that all priests in Israel were descended from Levi. All priests were Levites, but here's the twist here that you got to pay attention to. If all priests were Levites, not all Levites could be priests. What do I mean by that? To be a priest, you not only had to be connected with Levi, but with Levi's most famous descendant named Aaron. You know, most of you know, Aaron is the first high priest in Israel. If you want to be a priest, you need to be related directly to Aaron. So all priests are Levites, but not all Levites can be priests. And Korah's a Levite, but he's not directly related to Aaron. So that's the rub. That's what Korah doesn't like. Korah wants to be a priest and not just a lowly Levite. Korah wants to be the person in charge, call the shots, be the CEO, big man on campus. That's what Korah wants. Korah wants up. Now, Dathan and Abiram, they're not Levites. So this whole mixed up idea of Levites and connected to Aaron and priests, that doesn't revolve around them at all. Dathan and Abiram, they are Reubenites. So they're not concerned with what Korah is all juiced up about. No, Dathan and Abiram, they're just the normal kinds of people who want to be people in charge. Dathan and Abiram, they're Reubenites, but all they want is more power, more prestige, more position. And so they just jump on board. Because Korah's kind of ticked off with Moses. And so Dathan and Abiram, they see an opening. Maybe we can elevate ourselves as well. And guess what? There's 250 more men who want to be in charge. Women, this should come as no surprise to you. So there are 250 additional men. And these aren't just rank and file, blue-collar types of men. These are who? Leaders of the community, prominent members of the assembly. So now there are, count them up, 253 men who want more control, who want more authority, who want more power. 253 men who want to go up. The next verse tells us they united, Korah and his cronies, united against Moses and Aaron and said, "You've gone too far. The whole community of Israel has been set apart by the Lord. He is with all of us. What right do you have to act as though you're greater than the rest of the Lord's people?" They're accusing Moses of getting up one day and saying, "I'm going to be in charge. I'm going to be the leader of Israel." Is that how it happened? I don't think so. You remember the story. In Exodus chapter 3, there's a burning bush, and there's a voice from the bush, and there's holy ground, and Moses takes his sandals off, and God says, "I am who I am." And Moses says what? Send someone else. Moses didn't what? Put himself in charge. God put Moses in charge. You ever seen one of these? You know what this is called? A blowfish. Blowfish. Blowfish like to look bigger than they really are. So blowfish swallow a bunch of water so they can blow themselves up and look bigger than they really are. Have you ever been around a blowfish? Sure you have. Maybe you work with some blowfish. Maybe there are blowfish in your family. Maybe you've been a blowfish. I know I have. But get this. Blowfish have a toxin level 1,200 times more powerful than cyanide. Blowfish have enough poison in them to kill 30 adult people. Blowfish are dangerous. Don't mess with blowfish. They will kill you. Korah and his cronies are acting just like blowfish. They're puffing themselves up. They're trying to make themselves look bigger than they really are. And mark my words, you know, blowfish bring death. And Korah and his cronies, mark my words as I say, they will bring death. Blowfish kill families. They kill marriages. They kill churches. Wherever there's a blowfish, there's poison in the water. Moses pushes back against Korah, Dathan, Abiram, and the 250 malcontent leaders. Most of them apparently being Levites who want to be priests. So Moses says to them, sons of Levi, is it too small a thing for you that the God of Israel has separated you to do service in the tabernacle of the Lord? So they could do service in the tabernacle, the worship. They just couldn't be what? Couldn't be in charge. Couldn't be priests. And you would seek the priesthood also? You're not related to Aaron, is the idea undergirding that question. You can't be priests. Therefore, Moses says, you see, I didn't set this up. The Lord set this up. It's against the Lord that you and all your company have gathered together. That's always the issue when it comes to pride. It's always me fighting against what God has given me as opposed to someone else. Pride says, God, let me be in charge. Pride says, God, let me call the shots. Pride says, God, whatever situation I'm in my family, at work, in community, wherever I'm in, God, let me always be up. And then, one of the most shocking verses in the whole Bible, really. Korah and his cronies say this in verse 13. Isn't it enough that you brought us out of Egypt, a land flowing with milk and honey, to kill us here in this wilderness? Egypt is all we hear once they break camp at the end of Numbers chapter 10. As soon as they leave Mount Sinai and start heading to the promised land, the bulk of the people want to go back to Egypt. Why did we leave Egypt? Why aren't we still in Egypt? Why are we in this wilderness and not back in Egypt? And look what happens when we are intoxicated with pride. When I am intoxicated by that one word up, my moral compass goes berserk. These people start calling bondage and slavery and Pharaoh's whips and tricks. They call that what? A land flowing with milk and honey. How mixed up pride makes us. When I'm trying to head up and I'm on my high horse and I think I'm better than someone else, I'm just like this. I get completely confused. I start calling bad good. I start calling lies truth. I start calling darkness light. I start calling Egypt the promised land flowing with milk and honey. Pride completely blinds us to reality. And then it's high noon at the OK Corral. The two guys in the white hats, who are they? Moses and Aaron. And who are the 253 in the black hats? Korah with a K, Dathan, Abiram, and those 250 malcontents. And it is high noon at the OK Corral, and they are ready to draw their guns, only they don't draw guns, they draw their censers, what they use to make things smell good. And Moses says, take your censer, put the incense in it, light a match, get some coals, show up before the Lord at the tabernacle tomorrow, and we'll see what God says about up. And so they do. And God shows up at the opening of the tabernacle. And what happens to Korah and his cronies? What happens to all the blowfish? This is what it says. We have to go all the way to verse 32. The earth opened its mouth and swallowed the men. Do you see the great irony in this? That those who are consumed with going up, they end up going down. Korah and the blowfish go way down. And I highlight this word swallowed because it's the same word in Exodus chapter 15, verse 12, that describes what God did to the Egyptians at the Red Sea. You get the connections? Korah and his cronies have become just like the Egyptians. Korah and his cronies have been swallowed up by the Lord. The rebels in Israel have become just like the enemies in Egypt. Up is my greatest enemy. It really is. My sinful pride is my greatest enemy. Down, humility, that's my greatest friend. Yours too. But we think about going down, and there is something in all of us that rebels. Down, that's the language for lazy people and losers and the left behind and the low achievers. Down, scale, downsize, down in the mouth, down on my luck. Down, not down. Moses, as you well imagine, he goes down. Moses is the antithesis of Korah and the cronies. 3 times in Numbers 16, Moses not only gets on his knees, he falls flat on his face. In verse 4, that's Moses. Verse 22, that's Moses and Aaron. And verse 45, Moses and Aaron. Moses in Numbers 16 is spending more time on his face than he is on his feet. It's going down. In fact, we go back to chapter 12, and we have these words. Moses was very humble, more humble than any other person on earth. That word humble is highlighted, is in Moses' Hebrew, the word that goes as low as you can go. It's anav, if you really want to know. But when a Hebrew writer uses the word anav, he's saying, this is really low. In fact, there's no other word to describe meekness and humility and getting low and getting flat on your face. It's anav. Now, I want you to pay close attention to this. Than any other person on earth. Because there's a person in heaven who's even more humble, more anav, more meek than Moses. And you know who that is. Moses, just like the entire Old Testament, points to Jesus. That's the claim. That's the claim that Jesus makes over and over again. He says, remember Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, and Israel, and the Exodus. Remember Moses. I'm greater than all of that, although they preview and they predict and they foreshadow who I am. I'm greater than that. Moses then gives us a compelling picture of Jesus. Talk about being up. Oh, Jesus is as up as you can ever get. Philippians chapter 2, verse 6, our second lesson, it describes Jesus, who being in the very form of God. Did you get that? Jesus is not just a good man or a prophet from Galilee or a rabbi. Jesus is God. Fully God. Not a junior partner to God, not a sort of Mike Pence of the universe, but Jesus has been God from eternity past. We just confessed that in our first service in the Nicene Creed, and we confess this creed in this service every other week, don't we? We confess of Jesus that Jesus is of one substance with the Father. You can't get any higher than that. And Jesus went down. Philippians 2 verse 6 continues, being in very nature God, did not consider equality with God as something to be grasped, but made himself nothing. What does that look like? We'll take a look at that momentarily. Made himself nothing, taking the very nature of a slave. Once Jesus was born in Bethlehem, he didn't ever stop going down. Creator of all, he never owned anything. King of kings, he washed feet. The Son of God, Jesus became a slave. A slave. Let that sink in. A slave. You can almost hear the angels saying, Jesus, that's far enough. That's far enough down. Don't go any lower than that. Oh, and he did. This is what it looks like to make yourself nothing. Paul goes on, Philippians 2, verse 8. And he humbled himself and became obedient unto death, even death on a cross. Jesus went way, way down. We also confess that in the Nicene Creed, who for us men and our salvation came down. For our salvation, right? To hang like a scarecrow in a garden, spiked to wood, to be stripped naked, to be mocked, scourged, ridiculed, spit upon. For us and our salvation, so that that cleansing blood of Jesus cleanses us from all sin, and that includes my ugly, stinking sin called pride. When Jesus died on the cross, he subverts every tenet of our system. Our system says the way to get ahead is go up. Jesus says the way to live is to go down. Down, down, down. Down right where you're at. Down in your basement, down in your bottom. down in your barrel, Jesus goes way down to meet you right there. All our confusion and shame and heartache and brokenness and regret, Jesus meets us right there. Do you get it? Jesus turns the world upside down. I'm scared to death that people will hear me preach and they will think that being a Christian is just kind of like being everybody else, but you throw a little Jesus in. Not so. Being a follower of Jesus means you are part of an upside down world. What do I mean by that? The first in this kingdom, they're last. Oh, and the last, they're first. And the weak, they're strong. The strong people, Jesus says, they're weak. The humble, they're exalted. And the exalted, in this kingdom, they get humbled. The Jews in Thessalonica in Acts 16, verse 7, get it. When Paul and Silas and Timothy show up in Thessalonica, these Jews say, these are the men who have turned the world upside down. That's the new reality. So if I'm going up, that will, in the end, and there's always an end, if I'm going up in the end, that will be my worst enemy. If I'm going down, that's my best friend. So which way are you going? I mean, really. Which way is your life going? Up or down? When I was 6 years old, my family went vacationing just about 2 hours west of where we were at in Denver. We went to a place called Glenwood Springs, Colorado. And Glenwood Springs, Colorado has these awesome swimming pools that are hot and mineral fed year round. So you can go swimming in Glenwood Springs in the pool when it's 30 below. Just don't get out of the pool. But it was summertime for us, and as most dads do, my dad in his infinite wisdom said, Reed, it's time for you to jump off the what? The high dive. And, of course, he was right there, in the pool, saying that I'll take care of you and nothing to fear. But it's a ritual of sorts, right? Many of us have done this. A parent says, get up on that board and jump down. And there's not a lot in us that wants to do it, right? We all need a little coaxing to take a step down. Moses, and all the more Jesus, invites us again today to get off that high horse, to stop thinking like we're God's gift to humanity, and take the step down. Do you realize, have you come to the understanding that if you want to be happy, your happiness is connected to your humility? The most unhappy people on the planet are full of pride. The happiest people are the most humble people. We're most alive. We're most childlike when we go down. Down to love, down to listen, down to forgive, down to sacrifice, down. Moses, and certainly all the more Jesus, says, you want to make a splash in life? I mean, you want your life to count. You want to do something that really makes a difference. Well, you know, the only way to ever make a splash is to go down. Let's stand and offer ourselves to God doing just that.